Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 6 of our continuing series on this remarkable book, I Am That, the collected, transcribed oral teachings of one of the 20th century's great non-duality or Advaita Vedanta teachers out of the Indian tradition, Nisargadatta Maharaj. This remarkable text compiled by Maurice Friedman, transcribed, transliterated, and presented and published in 1973, has gone on to become one of the great 20th century classics of world philosophy. And I just think it's time well spent that we gather here in this video sangha or community and work our way through just a tiny selection of excerpts from the text. I recommend you get this book and work through it on your own. I'll put a link in the description to all of these videos in this playlist to this book on Amazon, or y'all get it wherever you like to get books. It's available widely everywhere. So let's jump back into our study. This next excerpt I want to share with you addresses a question we've already visited a few times, and that's the nature of the book. You might say that there's a lot of repetition in the text, but keep in mind what this text is. This is his unplanned responses to questions that pilgrims and seekers and visitors bring to him in his parlor in the front room of his apartment, in that little smoky room upstairs from his tobacco shop, where the reel-to-reel tape recorder is set up. And he doesn't know who's going to come see him and what they're going to ask. And so they keep asking the same questions over and over and over and over again in different forms, as we all do. And of course, he responds fresh in the moment, out of his own deeply perceptive response to their needs and their questions. And he puts some words together. And so here's an idea we've heard in other ways before, but I really like the way he puts it here. The issue is about what is the best path. What is the best yoga? What are the right margas or methods? And, what exactly should I be doing to move closer to realization or awakening? How do I do it? Show me the manual. Show me the map. Here's what he says. Don't talk of means. There are no means. What you see as false dissolves. It is the very nature of illusion to dissolve on investigation. Investigate, that is all. You cannot destroy the false, for you are creating it all the time. Withdraw from it, ignore it, go beyond, and it will cease to be. So, look, he had a guru who asked him questions, who led him through a meditation process, a deep inquiry process, an awakening process. Don't misunderstand this teaching to mean abandon all methods and paths. But instead, it seems to me, Nisargadatta's warning here is, don't fixate upon and attach yourselves to methods. Or worse, start arguing with everybody around you about what the best methods are. In this simple, again, natural teaching, it's right in his name, right? The natural teacher. Maybe the most important method of all is just simply to continue to live in the question. As he said, what you see as false dissolves. I'll say it differently. Simply observing the illusory nature of your conceptual framework, simply observing that, the act of observation begins to dissolve the illusion. Spending time in the consciousness of inquiry, in the space that questions create, that is the method or the means. That is the sufficient process to begin to unravel the current conceptual cage in which I reside. But I love how he kind of sticks in there too. Look, stop fighting illusion, because guess what? Your mind is continually spinning new illusions like a spider spins spider web. So there ain't no end to it. Remove yourself from it. Witness it. Observe it. Live in the I don't know of the mystery that we are. He goes on, do not try to know the truth, for knowledge by the mind is not true knowledge. But you can know what is not true, which is enough to liberate you from the false. The idea that you know what is true is dangerous, for it keeps you imprisoned in the mind. It is when you do not know that you are free to investigate. And there can be no salvation without investigation, he says. Because non-investigation is the main cause of bondage. Again and again, we are sitting now in this theme that the act of investigation is sufficient to unravel the bondage that our own mind has created. So maybe it's just another trick of the mind to attach to the illusion that my mind can think my way out of this bondage that the mind has created. Do you see how crazy that sounds? How do we know when we're doing better? How do we know when we have made progress? This is an idea that many religious traditions and spiritual teachers around the world have focused on. You know, Jesus' famous line, by their fruits ye shall know them, in the old King James Version. Or as he said on the last night of his life to his disciples, hours before he was executed, Jesus said something like, you know, in the future, you will know who my followers are by how well they love one another. Nisargadatta puts it this way. What are the signs of progress in spiritual life? Freedom from all anxiety, a sense of ease and joy, deep peace within, and abundant energy without. The fruit of wisdom is the joy of life well lived. No longer completely, maybe only slightly, but no longer completely imprisoned by fear and anxiety and overthinking. And this is just something you and I are going to have to learn how to taste for ourselves. Nobody can tell you when you're free. Nobody can tell you when fear no longer grips and rules your life. That taste comes, and you can't miss it. You can't mistake it. He also says, it is not what you do, but what you stop doing that matters. The via negativa, as the Christian mystics of the Middle Ages put it. The negative way, or in Sanskrit, not this, not that, neti, neti, neti. And there we are recognizing the ineffability of ultimate reality, that it can't be described. We can only say what it isn't, the negative way, or not this, not that, not this, not that. And in that same way, Nisargadatta brings that into now this question of method, of how are you and I to move from ignorance to wisdom, from confusion to clarity, from pathological attachments to realizing that we already are what we seek. Instead of craving freedom, knowing that right here and now we are free, and we only have to awaken to it and realize it. So Here's another little hint about the method of no method, as the Zen Buddhists put it. It is not what you do, but what you stop doing that matters. Isn't that the first step of Patanjali's The Yoga Sutra, Ashtanga Yoga? To let go of destructive practices. Stop being cruel. Stop being attached to dissipating sensory obsessions. Stop wasting time on stuff that isn't real or that matters and that doesn't vibrate in deep alignment with your authentic nature. It also reminds me, and we used this line in an earlier video, of the great Meister Eckhart's line that we do not come to know God through a process of addition, but by a process of subtraction. So what am I willing to let go of? What obstacles and hindrances am I ready to renounce and release? Those are the most effective steps to take, not what further ornamentation and busyness and complexity can I layer on top of this already chaotic existence. He says, to act from desire and fear is bondage. To act from love is freedom. I feel like writing that one on a Post-it note and sticking it on my bathroom mirror, on the refrigerator, on my coffee cup. To act from desire and fear is bondage. To act from love is freedom. This is a quick check-in with yourself as you're facing a new situation, a new challenge, and you're in a decision-making process. And in any decision-making process, you are trying to anticipate outcomes. None of us can predict the future, but, we try to sort of, well, if I do X, then what's Y and Z? If I do A, what's B and C? What are the consequences of this proposed action or this proposed action? That's natural as we all try to find our way through, muddle our way through this wild world. And maybe that's the ultimate kind of barometer. Am I making this decision out of fear? Am I horribilizing the future? What is pessimism, but really, just a prediction that something terrible is going to happen. And there's no evidence that that's true. Or am I making my decisions as best I can out of the conscious awareness that we live in a beneficent universe, that there is abundance pouring forth and manifesting all around us, and that there are magnificent people all around us who are ready to cooperate and coexist with us and align with us and collaborate in the unfoldments of whatever is arising. And that fundamental optimism, that loving trust, what the religious people call faith, that might be a much more productive modality than the modality of everything's dangerous, everything's horrible, it's all going to fail, everything's going to go wrong. Maybe why don't we just wait and see what's going to happen? Because none of us knows what's going to happen, and none of us singularly controls what's going to happen. So what is for us to do? To simply show up, do the work that is ours to do, and to let go of the outcome. He says, causes and results are infinite in number and variety. Everything affects everything. In this universe, when one thing changes, everything changes. Hence, the great power of man in changing the world is by changing himself. There's another theme that keeps coming up in this work. I'm just going to keep my own side of the street clean. And I'm going to get up in the morning with my broom and sweep. I'm not going to worry about the thousands of miles of sidewalk and street that connect together with my little stretch. I can only do the work that I can do and let go of the outcome. But not in the consciousness of defeat and hopelessness, but in the consciousness that that alone is an enormously powerful step. Because I think you and I would be surprised if we were to suddenly be omniscient and see how deeply impactful that one tiny little gesture was, that one little moment was, that singular action was, that every thought and word and deed throws a pebble in the pond, and those ripples inexorably travel outward, and you can't stop them, and they just go, and they touch everything else in the cosmos. We are all vibrating from the actions and thoughts of everything else that exists. That is the collective sort of karmic concert in which our one note vibrates and contributes. Nisargadatta says that look at the content of your mind. You are what you think about. Are you not most of the time busy with your own little person and its daily needs? The value of meditation is that it takes you away from the humdrum of daily routine and reminds you that you are not what you believe yourself to be. Another pitch for the power of meditation, which is, of course, in Vedanta, his tradition, and for many of us as well, the practice par excellence. Sure, worship can be powerful. For many people, devotion is an essential engine of transformation. For others, not so much. What about sacred service? What about consciously working to make the world more just or to help just one other person? Yes, karma yoga, karma marga is an important spiritual practice as well. So is study, this kind of thing we're engaged with right now, jnana yoga or jhana yoga, the use of inquiry, as he keeps talking about, to examine all the things to examine all the constructs that we inhabit and consciously wonder aloud with each other in this sangha, in this community. How do we get stuck here in these erroneous thoughts? And as we bring these mistaken assumptions into the realm of our attention, they begin to dissolve, as we heard him say earlier in this video. So here's a philosophical exercise, a very Socratic exercise. Examine everything that you think you know. This is what René Descartes did in his famous Meditations. Different use of the word meditation, but anyway, where Descartes examined everything that he thought was true in his whole mind. This is what Nisargadatta is saying as well. Look at the content of your mind. And that you are what you think about. That's the opening passage of the Dhammapada of the Buddha, right? That our life is a product of our thoughts. Our thoughts of yesterday build our life of today. Our thoughts of today build our life of tomorrow. Our life is a product of our thoughts, Buddha said. That's basically the first verse of the Dhammapada, the collected sayings of the Buddha. All throughout the Bhagavad Gita, we get the same idea. You are what you love. You are what you think about. Thoughts have tremendous power, for better and for worse. I know we've been talking a lot here about we are not the mind and all of that. that's also true, that we are the depth awareness, the inner witness that witnesses thoughts. But it's also true that the quality of my life is profoundly shaped by what it is I think about all the time. What do you think about all the time? Do you think about worries about how everything's going to go wrong, how you never have enough, how everybody's out to get you? You kind of create your own story, your own narrative, and then sure enough, that's the hell you live in. Or could you think differently? Could you clothe this formless reality in the form of different thoughts that then place you in a whole different kind of way of being in the world? Viktor Frankl, very famously in his memoir and in his book about being at Auschwitz, noticing that in those Nazi death camps, some inmates just sat down on the ground, withered, and died, while other inmates somehow created meaning where there was none. And they went around taking care of people, sharing what little food they had with others. Their concern for others, their compassion, their universal consciousness, their willingness to not obsess about their own self, their own ego, the horror of their own life, transformed the experience for them. And in Viktor Frankl's philosophy then, and his form of therapy called logotherapy that grew out of this, it's all in his wonderful book, Man's Search for Meaning, leaves us with a kind of Stoic Buddhist Nisargadatta idea that the existentialists will also write about that. Okay, maybe reality is absurd. Maybe it has no meaning. Maybe we are radically free to impose meaning on the uncarved wholeness of the world. And that in meditation, we begin to realize that our thoughts are not reality, that we witness those thoughts. And we are, as we've been hearing this theme again and again, right here, right now, radically free. Join me in the next part of our deep dive into I Am That. Thanks for being here with us. Namaste.